Hey, Shekar, nice to see you again.
Great seeing you again, Steve.
Yeah, you had a really big year with Arcus in 2025. Bring our viewers up to speed on what the big breakthroughs were.
We had a fantastic year, actually. So we had three times bookings growth last year compared to the year prior. Our technology has been adopted by a number of data center providers and network operators, as well as telecom carriers, and then finally large enterprises. Obviously, everybody's looking at AI, but then the core cloud and data center expansion is also just booming. And then when you start boiling that down to what is happening at the infrastructure level, that's where we play.
So, I mean, you play in the infrastructure. Do you play inside the data center and in the network outside the data center?
We do. We're helping the data center in terms of things like top of rack switching and spines and leaves. But then importantly, because we are very routing centric, we're also helping in data center interconnects and interconnecting in between large pools of capacity, however globally distributed they are.
And there must be benefits to having Arcus inside the data center and between it, I assume.
Absolutely, absolutely. So if you start thinking about stitching all of this together and imposing policies that have to do with security and operational ease, you can see how much simpler it becomes if you have the same kind of network operating environment both inside and outside.
And I know that you just had a product announcement or have a product announcement, the Arrcus Inference Network Fabric. Tell us a little bit about that. Why is that important?
The Arrcus Inference Network Fabric, or AI&F, that we've announced is essentially a fabric that is focused on bringing the lowest latency, highest throughput, fastest time to first token, as well as the most optimized power consumption for inference nodes in an AI network. The talk about AI is centered around training and around kind of large GPU clusters and capacities. But at the end of the day, if you think about it, that is only as useful as the interpretation of those results at the edge nodes or the endpoints, or where an autonomous driving vehicle wants to decide what decision it needs to make at that split second, or an oil rig that is basically getting overheated and you need to decide what happens there.
How does this tie in to the, if at all, to the trend towards agentic AI?
You can roughly take the entire stack from top to bottom and break it up a little bit, grossly speaking, into an application stack and then an infrastructure stack. The AI agents and what the applications are doing, etc., live up here at the application tier. And today, largely, they're operating under an assumption that they don't really know what is happening underneath them. Once we know what you are trying to do with these agents, specifically if you need a certain latency requirement or if you need a certain requirement to operate within some power constraints there, then we can translate that, use that to send that down to the infrastructure tier and specifically the software layer of that infrastructure tier.
With the inference for a consumer chatbot, which somebody didn't pay for anyway, it doesn't really matter how many extra milliseconds are added to that. But as you say, for this new universe of Industry 4.0, there it actually really does matter.
To the examples that you mentioned, how some of these different instances require different latencies.
And I mean, this goes beyond really networking. It goes to compliance, doesn't it?
Sovereignty and power, kind of two important areas where compliance is actually going to become important. Localization and boundaries that you can draw around data and packets becomes super important. All of the AI capacity in the world threatens the consumption of power at a rate that nobody has seen yet. And that's why we've taken policies like that and made those primary citizens in our routing technology.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, you've obviously been busy and you've tripled your growth in 2025. But a lot of it, just to play devil's advocate, a lot of it is dependent on the North American infatuation with LLMs. What happens if it tops off, or heaven forbid, there's some sort of bubble?
Yeah, so Steve, truth in advertising is that our entire growth, 3x growth last year, had very little or nothing to do with the AI and the LLM boom. we have been simply building the best in class network to serve our customers for whatever they need to do to be efficient today. Now, this is growing extremely fast, independent of what the other trends are. I look at this very much like the internet in the 1980s or early 90s. If you fast forward 5, 7, 8 years from now, you will be looking back saying how naive we were at that point to think that this is what AI was. We have so many more things happening now, and we can't live without this thing.